That's really interesting to me to hear about your transition from rock and roll to real estate, right? It's kind of like not a lot of people make that transition. And to have the number of doors that you have right now, that's quite a small period of time to get from 0 doors to, what'd you say, 200 some odd doors. How did you make that transition? I mean, you got there quickly.
Well, we were very, very blessed on timing and when we started investing, and then jumping into starting the brokerage, going from $37,000 a year. Well, that's, just 2 or 3 real estate sales. And I was able to build the brokerage fairly quickly because there weren't really any agents in the space in any of these true vacation towns that could really even answer basic questions about what these properties look like as investments, and not just like, oh yeah, this will be a great place for you to stay with your family when you want to. So by kind of like practicing what I was preaching, I was able to grow that pretty quickly.
My name is Rodman Schley. As a real estate expert, I've invested millions of dollars in vacation properties all around the world, and I've been involved in the valuation of billions of dollars of properties. I want to share my 35 years of experience along with vacation home investment tips from the top minds in the short-term vacation rental industry. Now, let's do the work.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Vacation Property Secrets Podcast. I'm your host, Rodman Schley, and today we are lucky to have someone who is one of the preeminent voices in the short-term space. Avery Carl is the author of Amazon's bestseller, Short-Term Rental, Long-Term Wealth, your guide to analyzing, buying, and managing vacation properties. She's also the host of the Short Term Show podcast. Avery's also the CEO of the Short Term Shop, an online resource with offices in 20 different markets that are there to help teach you how to buy and sell vacation properties. Avery, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Now, this is exciting. You've been in the industry for quite a while. You're a bit younger than me, as we kind of discussed offline, but yet you're this wealth of knowledge. So I'm really excited to talk to you today about a lot of different things. I mean, we're talking about so many things going on in the world right now, economically, a lot of stuff happening to the travel industry, but you're the expert. You've got a book out on short-term vacation rentals, and you've also got a podcast and a network where you're helping people really sort through buying vacation homes.
Definitely got a lot of irons in the fire. I have been investing in short-term rentals since 2015, and started my company, the Short-Term Shop, which is the brokerage piece, in 2019. So well before COVID, seen a lot of different economic cycles at this point. So happy to just hopefully bring some experience and knowledge to your listeners.
Yeah. Why short-term vacation rentals for you? I mean, you could have done a billion different things. Why did you select short-term vacation rentals?
Well, I actually do a billion different things. So I've got about 250 doors total. My husband and I just are investment properties. 9 of them are short-term rentals. The rest are more traditional long-term rentals, single family and apartment buildings. And we actually started in long-term rentals. So our very first property was a single family long-term. And at the time, I thought I was working in my dream job, working in the music business in Nashville, making very little money because the music business pays very little because it's sexy. There's always, somebody who will do your job for less just to say they were in a room with some idiot country music singer the night before. So I was making $37,000 a year. We decided to buy an investment property, and the reason for that was we just got married. We had like $10,000 saved up, and we went to an Edward Jones financial planning office because we were like, what should we do with this? Let's be smart about our money. And they told us we didn't have enough money for them to bother with. So we're like, well, there's got to be something we can do. So we landed on buying a rental property. We didn't really even know it was called real estate investing at the time. Had to save up a little bit more than $10,000. We put 15% down on our first long-term rental. The mortgage on that was $647 a month. We were able to rent it out for $1,550, so a little under a little under 900, little over 900, a little under 1,000 a month, not 9,000, in cash flow for a long-term rental, which is really crazy for a long-term. And we were like, oh my gosh, this is making about the same amount while we sleep as I'm making schlepping 45 minutes in Nashville traffic every morning and every night. We need more of these. We need to make a business out of this. So we had a little bit more money saved up. My husband is actually, or was, he still does it on the weekends, but was full-time a classic rock DJ on Sirius XM. And so I put us on a pretty strict budget, but he would get these gigs hosting like the Monsters of Rock cruise or the Def Leppard cruise, where he would get chunks of, $3,000, $5,000 at a time. So we were able to kind of save up. And we knew we wanted to, we just said, well, okay, what are we going to do here? We want to buy more of these. So what can we buy that's going to make us the most amount of money the fastest? And we landed on short-term rentals, but we knew we didn't want to do it in Nashville, because even back then, this was about 2014, 2015, Nashville was already kind of anti short-term rental, and we could not afford to buy something and then be told later we couldn't use it for its intended purpose. So we'd just been on vacation to the Smoky Mountains in Tennessee, which is about 4 hours east of Nashville. And we'd stayed in a cabin. All of our friends stayed in cabins. So we figured, well, this is like the normal thing to do when you go out there. Regulations are probably friendly. Check that out. Yes, they were. And we figured, well, somebody owns these cabins. Why can't it be us? And we just kind of figured it out from there. So that's why we went for short-term rentals. And back then, like, I think we started investing the same year that AirDNA came out. So there were no data tools. There were no people on YouTube. There were no Instagram influencers on this. And we just kind of had to figure it out as we went.
It's pretty amazing how the whole profession has evolved, because like you said, for a while there was nothing. And I bought my first property in 2001, and it was a ski cabin up in Keystone. We didn't know. We had VRBO or Verbo, I guess is what it is now. But we didn't know what we were doing. We came in, we said, listen, we're going to buy this cabin. We'll rent it a little bit. We'll stay in it a little bit. Let's just see what kind of happens. But we had no idea about fundamentals. We had no idea about cash flows. We just didn't know. And now there are so many tools and so many resources, so many people teaching, so many people showing you what to do, showing you how to really dissect cash flows on these things to see if they work out. But I also saw in 2000, get that COVID period, right? Where we had record numbers of people going and staying at short-term vacation rentals, because at COVID, you had your kids home, you had your family home. You could just go somewhere for a month or 2 months or whatever it might be. But the thing about it is those folks weren't even buying on fundamentals. They were buying on emotion.
Yeah. So, there were a lot of people, not just short-term rentals. So many people bought real estate in that 2021-22 period because the rates were so low that there were a lot of people getting into the space that really didn't need to be, because they said, oh man, the payment on, I've always wanted to have a beach house, or I've always wanted to have a mountain house, and the payment on that's going to be what? I think I can swing that. Let's just slap it up on Airbnb when we're not using it, and it'll make money on its own. And I think that kind of the come up of Airbnb and COVID kind of coincided to make the perfect storm of people who weren't treating it like the business that it was. And, COVID happened at a time when Airbnb was like already, it was very established, but it was just getting to be like a real quote strategy. And so everybody was like, oh, well, I'll do this because I've been hearing about this Airbnb thing and I can get this property and I'll just put it on that. But really, if you're buying in the right markets, vacation rentals are not a new strategy. A lot of people equate vacation rentals with Airbnb. I like to call them vacation rentals because I don't buy Airbnbs. I buy vacation rentals in vacation markets. I'm not going into your mom or grandmother's neighborhood in Indianapolis and buying houses that would have been, something people lived in. But a lot of the areas that we buy in, so for example, the Smokies since, the 50s and 60s, or down here in the Panhandle of Florida since the 30s, my own grandmother has been coming down to Destin, Florida and renting vacation rentals since the 30s. She's 96 years old now. So it's not a new strategy, but really just with Verbo and then Airbnb. Verbo's been around since the 90s, but nobody really used it. But Airbnb really kind of blowing up has just in the past 10 years kind of democratized it and made it a strategy where you can actually cash flow, because you can cut out that 40%, or it's not 40% anymore. But when we started, the property managers were charging 40%. So there was no cash flow. You could have a vacation property and maybe it would kind of sort of pay for itself. But so that strategy is not new, but Airbnb really did make it to where like this is a true investment strategy where you can actually make money now.
Yeah. And when I started investing, it was that 40% management fee. So you either managed it yourself, saved the 40%, and then you got some positive cash flow out of the deal, or you just were hands off. You put a manager in place, everything happened, but you didn't really have anything left at the end of the day. It was all going to that management company.
Right.
You owned the property, they were making all the money. So yeah, when Airbnb came around and some of these other groups, I mean, it really made it much more advantageous to be able to manage a property, to be able to get guests in, to be able to go through the entire process and at least bring that down. Some people, you can still put a management company in place, but even management fees have come down significantly because of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And management company performance has gone up. I think, back when I started, property managers were kind of like the enemy because they weren't utilizing a lot of let's say optimization tools. So a lot of them weren't using dynamic pricing. They weren't using Airbnb and Vrbo. As a matter of fact, they'd tell you, Airbnb is for like college kids who want to smoke weed and rent each other's couches to each other's. We're not doing that. And so they operated just from low prices per night, just getting butts in the seats for the owners and saying, look how booked we got it, but taking that 40% of a large volume of low bookings. So they didn't even care how the properties were doing because there was no reason for them to care because they were the only option. So back then they were just terrible. But now with the rise of Airbnb and self-management, there's a lot of newer property management companies that are charging less, that are doing all of the optimization things and are doing the things that they need to actually increase that income for the owners too. So not only is it cheaper, but a lot of these newer companies are better than the big, local dinosaur companies, I call them.
Yeah, that's really interesting too, to me, to hear about your transition from rock and roll to real estate, right? It's kind of like not a lot of people make that transition, and to have the number of doors that you have right now, that's quite a small period of time to get from 0 doors to, what'd you say, 200 some odd doors.
Mm-hmm.
How did you make that transition? I mean, you got there quickly.
Well, we were very, very blessed on timing and when we started investing, and then jumping into starting the brokerage from, going from 37,000 a year. Well, that's, just 2 or 3 real estate sales. And I was able to build the brokerage fairly quickly because there weren't really any agents in the space in any of these true vacation towns that could really even answer basic questions about what these properties look like as investments, and not just like, oh yeah, this will be a great place for you to stay with your family when you want to. So by kind of like practicing what I was preaching, I was able to grow that pretty quickly. So I had a jump in my income from, anything's better than 37,000 a year. And then, you increase your income with every property that you buy. And then also, it's really easy once you start buying apartment buildings, in one closing, you're getting 30 doors. So it's not like, sometimes I'll post reels or something on Instagram or YouTube, and then all these people are like, you don't have 250, you'd have to be buying a property every 7 days. And like, well, apartment buildings, guys, like, come on, use your brain.
Yeah.
So we were definitely very blessed in the timing and being able to get things with super low interest rates, and also the majority of our portfolio before prices spiked a lot, which we have still. I closed on a vacation rental last week, so we're still buying, but it's harder to find deals now. But I think a lot of people, they'll buy 1 or 2 and they'll think, oh, cool, look at this cash flow coming in, I'm set, let me quit my job. And then, all it takes is, in all real estate investing, not just short terms, one weird thing to happen. I had an apartment building burned to the ground 2 years ago. Like, all it takes is one thing to really screw you up. So you do have to continue those saving practices that you did when you bought your first property. And not just, quit your main income source, your W-2 job. Everybody wants to do that. All the gurus on the internet are like, you can quit your job on 2 deals, and you might be able to, but it's not sustainable. Real estate investing, to actually grow wealth, you have to do it at scale. You have to grow, and it's not probably going to be 2 or 3 doors. But once you get to a point where you have a lot of doors, and people also like to be like, well, I don't care how many doors you have. I want to know what the gross or the net income is. But you have to have a lot of doors so that when something happens, like an apartment building burns to the ground, it doesn't destroy your entire portfolio. So, very fortunate in terms of saving, growing our income at the same time as growing the portfolio, and timing we were just like, that was divine intervention.
Well, it's interesting too, because you talked a little bit about the economic cycles, and we always have these economic cycles. You're a little younger than me, so I've lived through a few more than you have. But at the same time, you've seen a lot of the major ones. You're talking about some of the crises that between COVID, the 08, 09 collapse of the banking system, that type of thing. But right now, we've got really interesting economic dynamics going on too. And I know that somebody might listen to this podcast a couple months out. But what's going on right now, of course, is the administration just has placed all these tariffs into the world on all these other nations. And of course, we're seeing huge drops in the stock market. Our interest rates that we're paying are still pretty high. And there's all these countries that are saying, don't travel to the United States. Don't go there right now. What do you think that impact's going to be right now on these types of properties?
I think it really just depends on the market that you're invested in. So the markets that I'm in, we don't get a lot of international travel. So I think we'll be a little bit insulated from any potential travel bans. But, maybe people who own in some of the bigger tourism, not regional cities that when people come to visit America that they want to go to, those might be impacted a little bit more. In terms of where we are in the buying cycle, so looking at it from an acquiring real estate perspective, the best time to buy real estate was always yesterday. Like, again, people love to say, well, you bought back when, blah, blah, blah. Well, the 10 years from now, I really do think that people are going to look at 2023, 4, and 5 the way we look at 2008 right now. Because here's the thing. You can choose one: low rates, low buyer competition, or low prices. You can pick one of those things. And right now, we have low buyer competition, non-existent buyer competition. So fewer homes were sold in 2023 and 2024 than the last 35 years. That includes 08 and 09, which everybody, is a huge crash. The whole economy fell apart. More homes were sold during those years than the past 2 years. And people want to say, well, I'd rather have low prices or low rates. Well, you look 2 years ago, we had low rates and we had such astronomical buyer competition. People were paying 20% over asking cash just to get a property. So right now, for example, I just closed on a place here in 30A last week. Their starting asking price is 1.25, sat on the market. They did some price drops. And finally, we went in and offered $750. Which is absurd, super offensive, so offensive to the seller. And we got it for $815.
Oh my gosh.
Because there's no buyer competition. So you're able to, and the comps, by the way, the sold comps until now were over 1 million. So right now, the sellers who are listed in vacation towns is going to be completely different if you're buying in a market that has a lot of primary homeowners. But we only operate in markets that the majority of the real estate being bought and sold are vacation homes or vacation rentals. In these types of markets where it's very just discretionary spending purchases, they're even more dead than the rest of the country. The people who are listed, it's been long enough for them to know, like, hey, this is a terrible time to sell. This is a buyer's market. So the people who are listed are people who need to sell, not the people who just want to sell to see what they can get. So if you go through, I think we went and saw 11 properties that had been listed for over 6 months. We made offers on 3 of them. 2 of them told us to just go to hell, not even responding. And then this one, we were able to get, and it's really cute and nice. It was only built in 2018. So if you go through and make enough offers, you will get to that seller who's just ready to let it go for a good deal. So right now it's a really good time to buy in terms of buyer competition. Now you also, of course, have to make sure that the numbers work, et cetera. But I do think in 10 years, people are going to be like, dang, that was like an open playing field for going out and getting deals, and we didn't take it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. Even right now, if you think about the dynamics, so you've got the economy that's sputtering a little bit, you've got a lot of stuff happening, and they've talked even on the Fed a lot about starting to bring interest rates down, but they haven't done it yet. So the thing about it is, like your deal, you go and buy that deal, you get the really good pricing, and then guess what? When interest rates come down, you just go refinance the deal and you get it at the lower rate. So you got a lower price, then you go refinance at the lower rate and all's good. But if you wait, like you said, all of a sudden, the demand starts picking up. More people, more competition, higher prices. You might get a lower rate, but you're going to give that back in a higher price versus getting that lower price. So there's really a lot of opportunity here. And I think a lot of people are more scared about, well, like you said, I don't have a lot of international travelers, right? So for you, you're sitting there going, well, I'm probably okay. I'm going to get this person who's in Tennessee going into the Smoky Mountains, renting my place. I'm not worried about that. But maybe people could focus in on those types of areas where you don't have that threat of not getting the foreign visitors.
Hey, everybody. I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Vacation Property Seekers podcast. I want to let you know about one question that I get all the time, and that's how do I forecast my cash flow and my profitability when investing in a vacation home? Now, if you've ever wondered that or you know somebody who has, you're in the right place. We've created a free training called Financial Forecasting for Maximum Vacation Home Profitability. Now, in this training, we're going to guide you step by step on how to accurately project rental income, estimate your operating expenses, and calculate your returns so you can make informed investment decisions. You can access the free training at vacationpropertyexpertnetwork.com. So if you're ready to dive deeper into financial fundamentals and maximize your profitability, visit vacationpropertyexpertnetwork.com.
So that has always been my strategy, is to invest in regional drivable vacation markets, because it's not as, I mean, I've never really paid much attention to what international travel is doing anyway, but they're very typically affordable and accessible. So they're more affordable to purchase than like a big international destination, for example, like New York City, even though they don't allow short-term rentals, but you get what I'm saying. And also it's more accessible to more people. So for example, during COVID, people didn't want to get on flights and go to big expensive vacations. So they're not going to Hawaii, but they were getting in their car and driving to Panama City Beach because it's accessible, affordable vacation for them. So, you know, even in economic downturns, maybe we're not going to spend the money to fly the family to Hawaii, but we will go drive down to Panama City from Atlanta and hang out for a few days. So I like that regional, drivable, accessible, and affordable destination because it's a little bit more insulated. I would never say anything is recession proof, but it's a little insulated to those types of ups and downs, because you do still get the people who go to Hawaii, or if they live in Atlanta or the Southeast, they will still do the Panama City weekend vacation, even if in a bad time. And they'll do it in a good time too, because not everybody has time all the time to take a 12-hour flight to Hawaii. So I prefer those types of destinations also because the regulations are typically more favorable. I like markets that don't have a lot of hotel presence. So down here in the Panhandle, like it's all vacation rentals. There's only 10,000 of us who live here full time in 30A, but there's 10 million people who come here to visit every year, and we don't have any hotels. And it's been like that for decades and decades. So the regulations are very favorable. Our town can't live without the tourists coming and staying in our vacation rentals. Same thing with the Smoky Mountains. When you get into markets where you got a lot of A, primary homeowners, and B, hotels. So like Nashville, for example, where I used to live, got a lot of primary homeowners, a lot of industry outside of tourism. So their income does not depend on the tourists like ours does down here in a tourist town. And also, you know, they don't want, their income isn't dependent on tourism. They don't want a bachelorette party house next door to them, which is what Nashville is known for. So, and I get it. Like, I live in a vacation town. I chose to live in a tourism market, and I still don't really want a vacation rental right next door to me. I've got little kids. I don't want people in and out all the time. So that makes sense. Like, I understand why people don't want that. And then also you have in those types of markets, big hotel presences, which also don't want short-term rentals. So those two things, primary homeowners whose income doesn't depend on tourism and hotel presence, contribute to anti-short-term rental regulation. So I try to stick to areas with not a lot of hotels, really dependent on tourism. It's worked really well for me. You, of course, have to, there's tons of markets out there that you would think would work like that, but don't, like Breckenridge, for example, not good for short-term rentals, because, you know, those Colorado ski towns are run by the big companies that own those ski
resorts. Yep.
Yes. They want you staying in their vacation rentals, not my vacation rentals. So of course you have to check with each municipality, but that's why I prefer those regional drivable destinations. More favorable regulations, a little bit more insulated to big economic events.
Yeah, so I'm in Colorado, and I'm you know, I've got all these beautiful ski areas and these vacation towns right in my backyard, but like you said, it's not feasible. They don't pencil out because of everything that's happening in those areas. So for us, my stuff's not drivable. Mine's in Costa Rica. So I have to, I've got good management down there. But the good thing about a country like Costa Rica is their number one industry is tourism. And so are they ever going to put laws into place to discourage tourism? Probably not. They want people to come down there. They want people to visit, just like the Smoky Mountains or down in the Panhandle. It's a part of their fiber. They're part of their community. And without it, they don't do very well. So you get a little bit of an insulation there from any kind of proposed regulations that might restrict you from doing an Airbnb type property. So I think that's a very smart strategy. If you talk a little bit about, you talked about your place that burned down. Now, everybody thinks you're going to come into these things and it's going to be easy. They don't think of it as a business. They think, well, it's just a vacation home. I can rent it. But I always tell people is there's so much more to it than that. There's so many things that can go wrong. There are, issues that you could have. That water heater is going to go out, or those pipes going to get clogged, or there could be a billion different things that happen. What kind of systems do you put up in place to make sure that you're accounting for anything that could go wrong?
So to be honest with you, I haven't had a whole lot go wrong with my short-term rentals over the years. Most everybody leaves everything very decent. I've never had anybody like trash and damage my place. I had somebody accidentally burn the fence down on one of them because they had a charcoal grill that they brought from home and put it over some pine straw, but it didn't end up being anything major. So for us, we just make sure that we're not trying to cram 1,000 people into too small of a space. So, we've got a 4-bedroom that sleeps 12. We're not trying to cram 20 people into a 4-bedroom. It's that kind of stuff that tends to contribute to people not treating your place well. My long-term rentals, completely different story. That one that burned down was a cigarette. Tenant threw it into like the landscaping and it was dry. What he wasn't even thinking about it, and almost killed his whole family, by the way.
Oh my gosh.
Nobody was hurt, but
Thank
the way
goodness.
that it happened was he was on the second floor and threw it over the balcony. And the way the fire started, he and his kids and wife could not get out that way. They had to get out through the second story window with the fire department. Anyway, insurance all covered that, and covered lost rents too. It was really just an anxiety and stress thing getting that rebuilt. And it was really, really stressful. It happened on Thanksgiving Day a couple years ago when we didn't know for 30 minutes what happened or why, or if anyone was hurt, or if it was something we were going to be liable for. So that was really scary, but you made it through it. You really just have to, I think it's a personality type, and it's being adaptable and being somebody who's going to like take the reins and take control of their own destiny. So for example, I kind of tell our clients this when they're asking about like, well, what if this happens? What if that? You're going to be successful if you're the type of person when that water heater breaks. So let's say I've given you a recommendation of like, hey, here's 2 plumbers that I like, give them a call. And neither one of them answers the phone. And then neither one of them calls you back. Do you sit there and wait for days and wait for them to call you back? Or do you go out there and try to find another plumber? I've had clients before that exact same thing. They would call the plumber. And then 2 weeks later, they're like, hey, Avery, I really need your help. I haven't been able to book my place in 2 weeks because I've been waiting for your plumber to call me back. And I'm like, wait a minute. Wait, what? You've just been waiting for somebody to call you back for 2 weeks while your place sits empty. Either call me back and say, hey, I need somebody else, or like get on Google and take control of your own destiny and find somebody. So if you're the type of person who is going to do that and okay, well, this guy didn't call me back, we got to find somebody to take care of this instead of waiting to be called back. If you're a waiting to be called back person, you're not going to be successful in real estate. If you're somebody who's like, okay, well, that guy didn't answer, on to the next one, going it out and finding that vendor that you need, then you will be successful.
Yeah, I agree. And being proactive is so important, not just in real estate. It's just important with the client experience. So if you've got somebody at the property and they're having an issue, you got to be responsive like this. You got to make sure they're taken care of very quickly because, that 1 3-star, that 1 2-star, that one, whatever it might be on like an Airbnb is going to really crush your ratings also. And it'll make it so you lose traction in the algorithm. So I always tell people when you've got that property, outperform. Make sure that you're there for your people. Make sure that you're available, that you're listening to their needs. I've got a good property manager down in Costa Rica at that property, but we just had an issue. We had an issue where somebody came in and they said somebody had come in and stolen some stuff. And, they gave us a list of the stuff, said, here's the problem. So we had 2 laptops and a iPad that were stolen. But when we started looking into it, well, there was no forced entry into the unit. There were, they had maneuvered the security cameras. They didn't put anything in safes. We had security cameras on the outside of the unit, which they altered, they changed. and then said all this stuff was stolen, and then tried to basically say, hey, you guys are going to have to give us $13,000 for these stolen goods. So somebody was trying to kind of shake us down. So you got to kind of take somebody like that. You're going to get instances like that could be problematic. But if you're very proactive, and if you make sure that you're doing all the right things, like we did everything right. We're not negligent in that, because we had the safes. We had the locks on the doors. We had the security cameras. And some people are very laxed on that, but I think you really need to make sure that you're doing everything you can to make sure that you've got things set up for that tenant to be safe, secure, for them to have all their stuff safe and secure, because sometimes people might even come in and make false claims. And you got to be ready for that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you do. 100%. We've never had anything like that happen. I think the worst we had happen was we had a guest who was 3 hours after checkout still there, and we didn't know their car was gone. And our cleaner walked in, hollered. They always say, hey, housekeeping, and nobody answered. And they went into one of the bedrooms, and there were people sleeping in the bed. And then they reported to Airbnb and said, oh, this odor came in while we were still there, and which is a huge no. Like, they'll delist you for that, and rightfully so if you actually did that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a big mess, and one of our properties was delisted for a couple weeks, but we were able to dig that out. But I think that's about the worst we've had happen. And we've got the Ring cameras out front to show, like, hey, the car was gone, where you can clearly see we're 3 hours past checkout. So, but it definitely took a while and was stressful.
Yeah, it's always better to be safe than sorry. So really going through the steps necessary. It's good that, like, you had the Ring camera. For us, it was lucky. I mean, we've got, like I said, we had safes in the room, and we have everything they needed. And even he came out and said that he disabled our outdoor security cameras. So, like, we had nobody came on the property. All our other security cameras did not catch anybody coming on the property. The only one we couldn't see is the one that he disabled earlier that day, which kind of made me feel like we were getting extorted for money on that one. But we had all of our ducks in line, so we feel very confident about it. So, well, tell me a little bit about your book.
Yeah. So this is the second one. So my first book came out in 2021. It was called Short-Term Rental, Long-Term Wealth. It was kind of like a primer on how to invest in short-term rentals, how to choose a market, how to finance, things like that. And this one, Smarter Short-Term Rentals, came out this year and in February. And so it's been out 2 or 3 months now. And it's more on how to scale and how to optimize the business side of everything. So you don't have to start with the first one. You can jump right into the second one. But the first one is probably a little bit more beginner focused, and the second one's a little more technical. So yeah, but you can get them on Amazon. You can get them Barnes and Noble, Kindle, also Audible, everywhere.
Well, I tell everybody, always pick up books, read, always get good mentors, because the more information you have, the more powerful you're going to be in this industry. Powerful meaning not like powerful and I'm more powerful than everybody else, but what you have upstairs and what you bring into the industry is so important. I mean, like I said, so many people don't even deal with the fundamentals. They look at this thing and go, I can just buy this. I can throw a shingle up. People are going to come stay here. It's not going to be any problem. But there's so much that goes into buying a short-term vacation home. And the more that the more empowered you are, and the better you're going to be as an investor. So I always tell people, read, get good mentors, because it is critical for you.
Yeah, definitely. And reading is so important. There's so many great books that not just about like actual short-term rentals, but business books, just general business books that will help you so much. Unreasonable Hospitality is one by Will Guidara. That Traction, which is back here, how to run your business. I just always keep reading. It almost doesn't even matter what it is that you're reading, as long as you're reading.
Yeah. And I know, Avery, you've got a YouTube channel and you've got an Instagram and you got all the fun social media channels, but I want people to be able to find you too, to learn from you, see what you're putting into the world. Where do people need to go to find you?
Sure. So if you want to follow me, the entrepreneur, it's at the Avery Carl on Instagram. If you want to follow the Short Term Shop, our brokerage, it's at the Short Term Shop on Instagram, and then youtube.com/the Short Term Shop.
Wow, that's great. And Avery, I think number one, I think you and I need to collab a little bit more, because I think you're somebody who's I like how you think. Let's
thank
put it
you.
that way. Not a lot of people have that. I mean, that entrepreneurial spirit and have that forward thinking. They, I don't know, they kind of are more in a reactionary mode, but you're a person of action. I mean, to get those number of doors that you've got in the time period that you have, and to have the success and to build the agency that you got, to writing the books. I absolutely love it. So I will definitely need to keep in touch. We'll need to talk again. But my last question for you is, there's so much knowledge and so much information that you have, but if you can go back when you were starting, which wasn't that long ago, by the way, for me, it was a long time ago. For you, wasn't that long ago. What would you give yourself in terms of being the best advice that you've accumulated to date that you wish you knew back then?
Oof. Well, if I always think if I would have started earlier, that would have been awesome, but can't change the past. I also, if I would have known what prices were going to do, I mean, my first short-term rental, we paid $150,000 for. That same house is worth $600 now. So if I had known back then, there are a lot of deals that I passed on that maybe we got under contract and that I didn't really like the inspection that we should have just closed on. So I think I would probably tell myself, the best time to buy real estate was always yesterday. Second best time is today. And, just to be smart and keep putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah, that's always a good piece of advice right there. Plus, I agree with you 100%. Like if you could have bought real estate in 08 and 09, even if you bought $1 million, $2 million worth of that real estate, I mean, you probably wouldn't be working at all right now just because, but people are afraid. People are afraid when things are down to buy that they're going to continue to be down, but it always cycles back. So you always got to work the cycles. So Avery, thank you so much for being on the show today, and let's definitely keep in touch.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Avery.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Vacation Property Secrets Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, we'd really appreciate it if you could leave a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. By leaving a review, you not only support the show, but you also help others find and enjoy it just like you did. Also, please share this episode with somebody who could benefit from it. And if you're aiming to build a short-term vacation rental investment business that's based on strong investment fundamentals and not just emotion, I'd love to invite you to a free training that I'm hosting. It's my financial forecasting for maximum vacation home profitability training, an on-demand video course that's completely free. It walks you through the investment fundamentals to build and scale your short-term vacation rental business. You'll also learn how to estimate investment income and your operating expenses to build a projected pro forma operating statement and the potential NOI and return on investment for your property. Just go to vacationpropertyexpertnetwork.com to get access to your free training. We'll see you next week for another episode of the Vacation Property Secrets Podcast.